Week 2 of the NFL preseason just wrapped up, and we've got players falling and rising in rankings due to preseason performances, roster maneuvering still going on, and it looks like the community starting to come my way on one of my ranked players in the wide receiver department. But something that really has not changed at all is Ja'Marr Chase and Puka Nacua still being our top two guys. Now, I will be honest here. These are the two guys that are in tier 1 right now. I did end up making some changes here, but not with Ja'Marr and Puka. There's nothing really different. Both of these guys are projected to be on top 5 offenses in fantasy football this year, and I think Ja'Marr Chase I've always preferred just because there's less variables to worry about with him. With Puka, you've got to worry about Stafford another year older. You've got to worry about Puka and his playing style get injured. Ja'Marr Chase has been so bulletproof over the years, and we know he has that wide receiver 1 ceiling, so why not go with him? But I will say this, if Puka drops in your draft past the 104, you better scoop him up. Now, dropping down to our next tier. This is the change that I want to talk about right away. So Jackson Smith-Njigba is inside of tier 2 at number 3 still, but he is alongside Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I had a come to Jesus moment on this one. You know, I've been asked a lot over the last couple weeks, really, if there's a difference between Amon-Ra and JSN. Now, I still do prefer JSN relatively clearly because JSN is going to be in line for a 30% target share again. But the thing with last year is that if you look back to recent history, and I'm talking like in modern day NFL history where they were tracking target rate percentage, there has never been a wide receiver until JSN that had a 36% target share. So the reality is he's so unlikely to do that again, even though they haven't made any additions. I do expect him to still maintain in the 30% target share range, but 36% is so wild. So JSN, because he's so good, is still at number 3, but there's got to be some pullback on this one. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, the thing with him is that he's just on a better offense, and so I think people want to justify going with Amon-Ra over JSN. Add on top of the fact that he's been a consistent top 3 wide receiver in fantasy for several years straight. I understand all those points. I think Amon-Ra is a great pick. He's my auto pick from pick 6 on. That is my auto pick right there. I'm still going to prefer JSN because I think his target share is more locked and loaded, and I think Amon-Ra St. Brown could fall victim to Jahmyr Gibbs having a massive season to a certain level. Now, I've got Rasheed Rice at 5, and I'm not budging on this one. Rasheed Rice has been at 5 for me basically most of the offseason. And a lot of people are going to say, Ryan, he runs like a grandpa. Have you seen the training camp highlights? Listen, I've seen it all. You're not going to throw anything at me I haven't seen because you know what? You've seen it all too. Rasheed Rice has not dominated in fantasy when he's been healthy because he's an extraordinary athlete. Rasheed Rice has never been the fastest guy on the field. Rasheed Rice is a product of a system. And whether you agree that it should equivalent to a great fantasy ranking, it doesn't matter because fantasy football is all about numbers and situations. And the bottom line is Rasheed Rice is in great position again because the Chiefs are still searching for really a number 2 answer behind him with Kelsey aging and the receiver room still being very much in flux. The one thing that's not changing is Rasheed Rice's importance to the offense on a play-by-play basis. So yes, I stand by Rasheed Rice at 5. Now I've got the 2 Dallas boys still back-to-back as well at number 6 and 7. CeeDee Lamb in first place, then George Pickens. Now my whole offseason narrative with these 2 guys is I don't think that there's that big of a difference. And I haven't been clear enough on what I actually have an issue with when it comes to CD. If you looked at CD last year, that dude, even when healthy, he wasn't the same. Like, he had some drops that were uncharacteristic. He wasn't as dominant after the catch all the time. And you might say to me, well, if you look at the season, CeeDee Lamb was definitely injured for most of it. So how can you count that against him? I'm going to, because George Pickens is there in the prime of his career searching for a contract, and Pickens is the better red zone player. So I really do think that CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, there's not too many things different about their situations. They have the same exact quarterback in the same exact high upside offense. So yeah, I think they both have top 10 to top 5 upside for fantasy purposes. I think Pickens is definitely not going to be the alpha, which is why I favor CD slightly. But when it comes to drafting these guys, I'd much rather take my shot on Pickens in the 3rd than I would at CD at the back of the 1st. Now, A.J. Brown, is at number 8, and Justin Jefferson is at 9 still. A.J. Brown, I would love to put him higher, to be honest. Like, I would really want to put him in the number 5 range if he was 2 to 3 years younger. But the fact of the matter is this. There is risk with this pick. Like, as much as I like A.J. Brown at cost this year, there is risk with it that you need to assess. This guy is 29 years old. He's got a chronic knee issue, so not really going away. Now, that being said, what you've seen from him on the field with Philadelphia over the last several years would not indicate there's a performance decline from A.J. Brown. That is what I hold on to with this number 8 ranking. I think A.J. Brown, from all logistical perspectives, should be inside the top 10 because situation's much better with Drake May. The offense is not necessarily better from talent, but it will probably be more efficient than it was in Philly last year. And when you looked at A.J. Brown's splits, that dude was awesome when he was on the field and being targeted. So A.J. Brown got to find his way inside the top 10, but there is risk with this pick. Much like there's a ton of risk with Justin Jefferson, who I've been low on all offseason for the second offseason in a row. Last year I was right, and people are arguing with me. Well, Kyler Murray is a better player than J.J. McCarthy, which I have not argued at all. My argument is that Kyler Murray is not going to take the leap and bound that Justin Jefferson needs to be a top 5 wide receiver again. And that's where you're valuing him, putting him in the back of the first round. You're expecting him to have a top 5 type of floor, basically, and a top 3 ceiling. That's just not the case with Justin Jefferson this year. Kyler Murray, historically, not getting a lot of touchdowns with his number 1 targets in fantasy football. And Kyler Murray, less mobile these days. How much more of a pocket passer is he going to be when he's not growing in height? That's a problem when you can't see over your O-line and you're not growing. So Justin Jefferson has the same batch of issues. I don't care if it's Kyler. I don't care if it's JJ. I guess I care a little bit. It would be worse with JJ, but still, Justin Jefferson is still overvalued in drafts, and I'm here to set the record straight at number 9. Now, Malik Nabers at number 10 to round out the tier. It's a big tier right here, and this is my way of saying I could see all 8 of these guys having top 3 upside. And I do put Malik Nabers in that category, while also, much like AJ and JJ, saying he has tons of risk attached to him. You know, Malik Nabers, I was anticipating all offseason being lower than I wanted to be, and I still feel that way. But at the same time, I'm finding myself fighting people a little bit by saying Malik Nabers in a redraft league as your second round pick, you're going to want to be careful with that one because this guy, we still haven't seen him in pads and getting hit yet on an actual NFL field. So that thing changes a lot of different factors as far as how he's able to shake off those hits. We have no idea yet. All we're seeing is drills of him. And of course, he's an elite athlete. He's going to look great in drills. This is a player here that is coming off a major knee injury, and all reports are great. But it wasn't that long ago they were all bad. So my whole point on it, I want to see the guy in action first before I start to rank him really high. But I honestly feel pretty comfortable still having him at 10 because I'm acknowledging the upside that he has as a player. Honestly, the really unfortunate thing about Nabers is that he used to be a 4th round pick in Underdog for several months when the knee injury news was really bad. Conversely, Rasheed Rice was also like a back of the 3rd round player, and he's gone up to the 2nd round, which based in my rankings, I don't have really much of an issue with. So if you feel the same way I do about Rasheed Rice, you might want to try to get on Underdog and use my code FFR and the link down there in the comments to sign up. Because when you do that, Underdog is going to give you $50 back when you play just $5. And on top of that, I will throw in a free copy of my Best Ball Draft Guide to help you out with best ball drafting because it's a little different than redraft leagues. But if you have the right tool like this one, you'll be able to dominate and do very well in those drafts. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we do have some changes in this one as well. Nico Collins is now at 11, and Drake London dropped a spot down to number 12. Now, I'm going to talk about Drake London ad nauseum here in a minute, so let me get Nico out of the way. Nico Collins, you just know the situation, right? Houston's offense, subpar, left a lot to be desired on the table last several years. I don't expect a ton different. Nico Collins is also a player I'm not really big on this year because his touchdown numbers have dropped over the years. And with Nico Collins, he gets phased out of game plans relatively frequently. So it's not that I'm big on Nico, the reason that he jumped over London. What my problem is with London now is I've been saying all offseason with Garrett Wilson. The quarterback situation in New York is terrible, and I can't put Garrett Wilson much higher than like the 25 range because of that. It dawned on me watching Tua be horrifically bad the other day in the preseason game. The same thing's got to start getting applied to Drake London, man. I mean, seriously, Atlanta's quarterback situation looks like one of the worst, if not the worst in the league. Now, you're hard-pressed to tell me it's worse than the Browns, but it doesn't matter if they're bottom 3 at the quarterback position. It's going to negatively affect Drake London. Now, the one thing with London is we have seen him overcome bad quarterback play to really high fantasy upside, but it's only in certain weeks. And this was the year I was hoping it was going to kind of stabilize a little bit more. I'm not really seeing that so far with Tua, and we just don't know about Penix and when he would even be, in theory, healthy to go again. So with Drake London, he dropped down a spot. I might start to play with him dropping down even a little further than this. Now, Egbuka is still at 13, and I will tell you this, there's a lot to talk about with Odunze and McMillan at 14 as well. Starting out with Egbuka, the guy is dealing with a toe injury right now. If you have not heard the updates, that is apparently, according to Todd Bowles, clouding the week 1 availability potentially. Here's the thing I'll say on that really quick. Remember back in like May or April when he was asked about Bucky Irving? Todd Bowles was. He was asked about Bucky and he said, yeah, I expect him to return sometime late summer, early fall. People took that as like he's going to miss the start of the season, and Bucky is good to go. So Todd Bowles, not the most precise guy speaking to the media. Don't hang on to this too much, but I do think there's worth concerns here because Egbuka, toe injuries can linger sometimes. I wanted to see a fully healthy offseason with both him and Baker to build the chemistry they need for an Egbuka breakout. And they're not getting that time right now. So as much as I want to put Egbuka a little higher than this, and I would love to put him over Nico, I can't do that right now, and I've got him at 13 because of that. Now, Odunze and McMillan at 14. This has become a problem to me because Darren Waller just signed with the Carolina Panthers. Now, Darren Waller at this point is a mixed bag. Like, the dude might not even be healthy enough to play 12 games this year. Like, I would not put any of that past him. The thing, though, is that if he is out there and he is healthy, he will take away red zone work from Odunze and McMillan, which, in my opinion, was going to be a big contributing factor to him having a potential top 10 season this year. I just don't know if I can see that if Darren Waller is there. And I'll be honest, he sticks at 14 from my last ranking reluctantly. I'm playing with pulling him down a little bit again, and I can't do it yet. I haven't finished statting it out completely. This is going to be a fluid ranking right here over the next several weeks, though. Dropping down to our next tier, Mike Evans is at 15, Devonta Smith at 16. Now, these two guys are in exactly the same spots. Mike nor Devonta's injury right now worrying me too terribly much. Mike, if anything, I guess is a little bit more concerning. The age of the player, the injury history of the player, the substation over there. It's all cause for concern. My thing with Mike, though, is that I'm placing him kind of at his ceiling, which doesn't always feel great for me to do from a rankings perspective. Like, sometimes I wonder, why am I putting him at 15 if that's his ceiling? I just see tons of ceiling if the guy is healthy. And even if he doesn't play 17 games, let's say he plays 13 games, I do think top 15 is still his ceiling. So that's why he's here. Now, Devonta Smith at 16, the thing with him is that, he just returned to practice this week, which is great. That's great information that we got on Monday. But Devonta Smith, I've still had the same issue that I've had all offseason with him, which is I just don't think Jalen Hurts is that good at throwing. I really don't. I think the over the middle of the stuff is not great. Devonta is a great deep ball player, which helps him a lot. And Devonta Smith, I don't feel like I'm that off on the ranking here from consensus. I just am not as high on him. I don't see like top 7, top 5 upside with him. That's why he's just not in tiers above him, because I think his ceiling is capped with the quarterback situation that they have and still the offensive uncertainties that still float around in Philadelphia right now. Now, here's a big jump right here. Chris Olave is at 17 now. And I'll say this before we get into a player that I think the community is catching up with me on. I'll admit I'm catching up to the rest of the community on Olave just now. I'll admit that. Like, Chris Olave took a 5 ranking jump. And he also took a tier jump in my most recent rankings, and it's entirely because of the Jordan Tyson injury. Now, my thing with Olave all offseason has been, I think last year when you look at it, the target share was ridiculous, and it was because they had no target competition behind him. I'm not arguing that he's not a good player, but when you bring in a top 10 pick like Jordan Tyson, a guy I loved in the draft, thought he was a better prospect than Tate, it's going to minimize his target share a little bit, and I think Tyson could be a guy that breaks out late in the season to lower his total finish down. And I still do feel that way in some senses, but I also do acknowledge that Jordan Tyson, this guy has been injured a lot in his career, man. College, high school, NFL now. So this guy is an injury red flag. He's already dealing with injuries with the new hamstring injury that popped up. Actually not new. It was the hammy that kept him out most offseason. This isn't good, man. So Chris Olave, if we get more word that Jordan Tyson is going to miss a bunch of time, he will inevitably rise in my rankings. And at this point, I see that happening still. Now, Odunze is at 18, and DJ Moore is at 19. That's the player that seems like the community's catching up to me on. Now, Odunze, he did drop a spot because of Olave, and Olave essentially pushed all of these guys in this tier down because Olave used to be in the tier below. Now it's different. So Odunze here, situation's relatively similar. Even with the Luther Burden injury, I'm not going to mess with this ranking too much because I still do think the Bears offense in general will be spread out. Now, Odunze is a guy I, much like DJ Moore, have been really over consensus with all offseason because the guy's career is at a crossroads and I believe in the talent still. And I also think the Bears offense is just one you want to invest in. And I've always been pro Rome over pro Luther. So there's a better argument now that Luther Burden's injured, but Odunze, I won't rank him much higher than this because I know I'm already well above consensus. Not that that factors into my decision-making process, but I do think it's worth keeping a lid on this one because there's still a lot of risk attached to it as well. Now, DJ Moore. The community's catching up to me. And the irony is, I've been saying all offseason, I anticipated being lower than consensus on this guy all offseason. And that just never came to fruition. He got some bad hype in the fantasy community early on in the offseason, and he hasn't recovered. Well, look what happens here. Comes out in preseason, has a couple drives with Josh Allen, immediately establishes he's the number one. Josh Allen's not spreading the ball out if DJ Moore is out there. Obviously, things will work off DJ Moore, but DJ Moore, make no mistake about it, his offensive play caller, Joe Brady, lots of history there in Carolina, and Josh Allen already loves DJ Moore. Now, you might ask me at the same time, Ryan, it seems like this is a dumb time to take this stance on DJ Moore considering dude just got injured. I understand that, and that is a concern I'm monitoring, but as long as I can see this guy playing week 1, he definitely deserves to be at 19 still. Now, 20 and 21, T. Higgins and Zay Flowers. T. Higgins ended up dropping 2 spots because of Olave's jump, and I put DJ Moore over T. Higgins, not because T. Higgins I feel differently about. We know this guy. We know the offense he's on. It's an excellent, elite offense, and T. Higgins has the upside to give you 40-point weeks, no joke. T. Higgins also, though, is going to be much like Nico Collins, a lot similar to how we've always seen him, which is sometimes he'll disappoint, he'll miss a couple games, so you can never feel super comfortable with him as your wide receiver 2 set and forget. But he still is a very high upside player that I like a lot. I just like the breakout upside and some of the upside in situational perspectives better than I like T. Higgins. Now, Zay Flowers is in a very similar boat. But the thing with Zay is I think there's more uncertainty with him than there is with T. And again, I don't dislike Zay. Like in drafts, I've drafted him plenty. I just think that with Zay Flowers, if this offense is going to be more spread out, which it seems that they're wanting to do in Baltimore with Declan Doyle now, if you've got 3 wide receivers on the field at all time, and one of those guys could be a breakout like a Jacoby Lane, then Zay Flowers' target share is going to suffer from that. Zay Flowers was pushing 30% last year. I don't think that happens if they stick with 3 wide receiver sets like we're being told that they will. So I think Zay, there is concern there. Obviously, he signed the big deal. He's going to be important, not arguing that. But just because of the history we've gotten of Lamar not being great to fantasy wide receiver ones, I don't feel that it's going to change if you bring in another receiver into the lineup consistently. So I think Zay Flowers at 21 is totally fair. Now, 22 to round out the tier, I've still got Luther Burden in here. He doesn't change either. Obviously, Obviously, he drops a spot because of Olave, but it's not because I don't feel good about Luther Burden still. I rose up on Luther Burden probably late June, early July, and I've kind of settled around this range. I think this is reasonable for him right here. This is a player we just didn't see enough of his rookie year to actually know if the guy's capable of being a wide receiver 1/1B. I don't think we have enough info on that one yet. Number two, the injury is obviously concerning considering that he's not playing the rest of the preseason, which we would have hoped he would because he's still a young player developing. So I think Luther Burden, there's still cause for concern there, but there's still also cause for plenty of upside and optimism in his department. Now dropping down to our next tier, Ladd McConkey, 23, and Jalen Waddle at 24. So Ladd McConkey, his situation's pretty similar as well. Wouldn't say anything changed about the preseason. Ladd McConkey still looks to be a really big part of this Chargers offense that I think takes the leap. But the question I've always had with Ladd is when you break down him and QJ, they're really not that much different. And in fact, QJ is better in some efficiency areas than Ladd has been over the last several years. So I just think Ladd, there's issues with me seeing him as a dominant number one target in this offense just because Mike McDaniel's there all of a sudden doesn't mean Ladd's going to jump back up to rookie Ladd. I just don't know if I see that again, so I just like other guys better than Ladd. I've got him at 23. Now with Jalen Waddle, he did rise over Terry McLaurin at 25, but it's not because I like Jalen Waddle any more than I did a month ago. I don't feel... I pretty much feel the same. I don't feel like I'm following suit with people who are really, there's a subsection in the fantasy space, are really big on Jalen Waddle this offseason. I get it on one hand because Denver's offense, it's an offense you want pieces in. But at the same time, man, Sean Payton is a master troll when it comes to fantasy football, much like Mike McDaniels. So don't take what he says too seriously. If he calls him the Joker, just ignore it, man. It doesn't mean anything for fantasy purposes. So I just think Jalen Waddle is safe here at 24. Now, Terry McLaurin, as I alluded to, is at 25, and Garrett Wilson actually rose up a spot and jumped into this tier to round us out in this tier at 26. Now, Terry McLaurin, this is me starting to bet against Washington a little bit. And it kind of pains me to say, like, I was really rooting for them to recover off the year that they had. Jaden Daniels, him losing his left tackle, Laramie Tunsil, is a big issue for me. Like, I don't think that Tunsil was great, but it's better than the backup that they had. And losing a tackle can change your season. Just ask the Chargers, man. So I just worry about this team's health again. And I was willing to write off last year as a little bit of an off year and just something that was unlucky. If you don't have your left tackle, I'm really worried, which affects the whole offense entirely. I'm worried about Jaden. I'm worried his priorities with this number 5 thing aren't in the right place. I'm starting to lose a little steam with the Commanders right now. Now, Garrett Wilson at 26, the player's so good. Like, that guy... I came on a live stream and I was talking about how good this guy was. Like, Garrett Wilson is so good at football. And obviously you may have seen the behind the body one-hander that he had warming up for the preseason game. Well, what you should really watch is Cade Klubnik throwing a skyscraper ball. Garrett Wilson going up there and grabbing it with both hands while the defender's closing in on him and trying to rip the ball away. Like, Garrett Wilson is so good at football. And watching Cade Klubnik, not that he's good, but it did give me hope. Like, if they do move off of Geno Smith, who I don't like at all, and he's really the one responsible for me putting Garrett Wilson this low because I think he sucks. But if Cade Klubnik becomes the guy, I don't think it's as bad as it was last year. So I really do think maybe I should start to rise up on him a little bit. But still, there's always going to be a cap because he is a New York Jet. Now, dropping down to our last tier right here, Jamison Williams did rise up to 27, and Carnell Tate dropped, not to the fault of his own. We'll get to that. Jamison Williams, though, my concerns are still there. I do think Drew Petzing coming in to be the OC could offer up specific challenges for him. Now, the thing I've always said is Gibbs is safe in the offense, Amon-Ra is safe in the offense, but this year I'm curious what Petzing does between Sam Laporta and J-Mo being the number 3 target basically in the offense. So I'm really worried about this one still. That being said, I'll bank on the offensive upside of Detroit well before I'll bank on it with Tennessee. And Tennessee was a team, much like the Commanders, I was really big on heading into the year. That's kind of a sleeper team. Cam Ward was terrible. in the preseason game, and that was a huge bummer for me as someone who's drafted him a ton in Underdog. Like, Cam Ward really does worry me. He was not hitting layups. He was making bad decisions over the middle of the field throwing the ball. He just looks like such a cowboy gunslinger, and it's like, I love that trait, but you gotta pull it back sometimes and be smart with the football. It doesn't look like he's learning that yet. So I'm really concerned that this offense doesn't take the leap that I thought. And if that isn't the case, then Carnell Tate will suffer as a result of that. So Carnell Tate, I've got to mitigate risk at this point and put him at 28. Now to round us out, 29 and 30, Davante Adams and Michael Wilson. So Davante Adams, much like Jameson Williams, you want to bank on the offensive upside. Well, my thing with Davante all year has been, if you look at last year, he was his worst efficiency year from a receiving yards perspective since like his second year in the league. This guy is basically just a touchdown threat at this point, which is good in a sense because he is one of the best red zone receivers of my lifetime. But at some point, that will fade away, and you will see some regression from a touchdown perspective. So I just worry about that, and I think you have to worry about it at his age and considering the injury that he got last year. Now, when it comes to Michael Wilson, I've been pretty upfront about this on live streams. I need to get it off my chest here. Michael Wilson, I do think, is the number one target. And I think the preseason actually kind of proved that. If you watch the game, Jacoby Brissett's number one read moving down the field was Michael Wilson. He was being used as Mike LaFleur actually called him earlier in the summer as his Puka Nacua. Like, I'm not saying, and he's probably not saying, he is Puka Nacua, but what he was used like is similar to what Puka was used like with the Los Angeles Rams. But then you, of course, watch Marv get the touchdown, and you're going to argue Marv is the better fantasy player. I understand the argument, but I want to see how it plays out, and typically fantasy rewards targets. So I'm going to stick with the targets that Michael Wilson seems to be having coming his way this year. So let me know what you think of the rankings update in the comments below. I appreciate you hanging out with me today.